FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and hard to believe in this day of constant data breaches, of cyber theft, of so many bad things happening on the internet that a large online broker would not take it all seriously and would just have lax security when they're guarding literally hundreds of billions of dollars of customer accounts. But Susan Antilla, award-winning journalist and founding journalism fellow at the Street Foundation, also a contributor at New York Times Dealbook, has blown the lid off of Vanguard for that exact practice. And Susan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kerry.
So Vanguard, huge company. They've been embroiled in a number of controversies recently, but this one probably is the most unforgivable because in this day and age, cybercrime is at the forefront of everyone's attention.
Yeah, this is important because Vanguard, it's the biggest mutual fund company in the world. They've got $3 trillion under management and 20 million customers. And a whistleblower came to me in the spring, and she said she still worked at Vanguard and that for 2 years she's been speaking up about security problems with the login process, with the firm's voice verification system. And for the most part, she said they've either ignored her or told her to stop complaining. So she finally got frustrated, decided to go find a reporter who would write about it.
Right. And filed a complaint with the SEC?
She did. In May of 2014, she filed a whistleblower complaint with the Securities and Exchange Commission and also with FINRA, which is the self-regulator for Wall Street. And FINRA very recently sent a letter to Vanguard saying that they had dropped the investigation related to her complaints. And the SEC, neither FINRA nor the SEC commented to me, but I believe the SEC is still looking at it. And last January, they got her on the phone the whistleblower office got her on the phone for almost 2 hours, asking her questions about the issues that she brought up in her complaint. So, that office of the SEC, they never say what they're doing or even when they've, what investigations are open or closed. But in any event, they seem to have been taking it seriously.
Yeah, and basically, they're just pretty much the authentication of online and on the phone, just not up to snuff, is it?
Right. It's not. The phone thing, Vanguard has something called the voice verification system. And I don't remember the exact words, but it's something along the lines of you can record into their system. You say something like, at Vanguard, my voice is my password. And they make a voice print of that. And then you can call in. And if your voice matches the recording that they have, you can move forward and you can do any transaction you wish in your account. And a couple of years ago, a client called this whistleblower whose name is Karen Brock, and he was furious because he had just set this up and he wanted to be sure it really worked. So he asked his son to call in and pretend to be him, and sure enough, his son got right into his account. So that was one problem. The other problem that is, and I think that they've fixed that, they've tightened that up a little bit. The other problem that's disturbing is when you, it's part of their login process. If you forget your password there or anyplace else, usually they have these personal security questions, things that you've answered for the firm. So, those things like, what's your dog's name? So I say my dog's name is Fido. Well, with Vanguard, you can give them your answers and you can have up to 2 typographical errors in your answer and still get in. I've clicked on the thing that says, that I forgot my password, and they've given me 3 different questions. I've gotten all 3 of them slightly wrong, with 2 characters wrong, and they've sent me a link to get right into my account. And that just shouldn't be happening.
Yeah, really. Because if you got experienced hackers, they can figure out their way around this.
If you've got experienced hackers, you've made their job a lot easier. Because if they can have 2 errors in their answer. The way computer programs work now, if you're a bad guy, basically, you've just made it much, much easier for them to crack your password answer. And, the other thing, though, Kerry, is that, a lot of us, there are people who just don't even memorize their passwords and they don't write them down or they don't feel like going to look for them. And so those security answers end up being your password. Because if you keep on saying, I don't have my password, and, you go through the process again, those answers to those personal questions become very, very important. So, nobody should be messing around with those things.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, in this day and age, I just can't see a huge company like Vanguard taking this and being so cavalier about it. Isn't that kind of shocking?
Yes and no. They share with the entire financial industry the same problem, and that is that customers don't want a lot of hassle accessing their money. They want it to be easy. They don't want to get tripped up if they make a fat finger mistake. They don't want to get tripped up and then they get stuck calling the call center. And frankly, the firms hate it when you call the call center because that costs them more money and, hiring more personnel. So there is this big issue of convenience versus safety. And, some of the experts that I spoke to said, nobody wants to be the first firm to have the best security, because that's going to be the firm that loses its customers, because the customers are going to get disgusted and go someplace else. And, one guy suggested to me that the only way to fix this is to make it like the seatbelt laws, where you make everybody have, maximum security. Nobody can allow for fat finger typos, and make everybody do what's called two-factor authentication, where they send you a text or something that you have to type in after your password to get in, because it's really all or nothing. Nobody wants to be the tough guy.
Yeah, well, the double level or even triple level authentication is really the only way to do this here, because otherwise anything else really is a half measure and is subject to subject to hacking. When you have the double level authentication where they send you a text to your cell phone, which is on record, and then it can't be changed without you being notified of it, that's pretty tight security. Can it be hacked?
That is tight. I agree. And then the other option is some of the firms, I know Schwab gives you those little tokens that, as long as you have your token, you push the button and it gives you a number that you have to type in. Yeah. I think that any investor that doesn't take advantage, if your firm offers that, the token or the texting, if your firm offers it and you're not using it, I just think you're crazy.
Yeah, you're asking for it. I mean, This happens. I mean, we're in this era here of cyber theft, and it doesn't matter whether the hacker is in Moscow, Russia, or Moscow, Idaho, right?
Right. No,
you're
right.
susceptible. And, that's why one of the sponsors of our show is an outfit called keepmyid.org, and they put a lockdown on your credit report so people can't go opening up new accounts without you being notified. You get a fraud alert instantly when somebody's trying to open an account. So they have to, you get a PIN, so you have to verify it immediately. And to have that on your brokerage account should be mandatory. Should be mandatory on bank accounts. I mean, I know on my online banking, yes, it's a pain, but every now and then my bank will force me to do the two-level authentication. Personally, I think they should be doing it more, but I guess convenience-wise, they haven't. But eventually, this is going to be mandatory, isn't it?
I don't think it's going to be mandatory until we've had a big blow up. I would agree with you that it should be mandatory. But, change doesn't usually come until people have lost a lot of money and people are screaming and yelling. And I don't think we've reached that point yet. I do see a lot of investors online or different, chat sites complaining about security at nearly all of the firms. But, you just don't have that groundswell yet. I mean, I think you really have to have some big financial firm has to have a big disaster where a lot of people lost money before I think anybody's going to make a big change in how this works.
Yeah, well, and it's going to be the brokerage houses and the banks being forced to eat it also.
Well, right. And, all of them, that's a whole other story. But, all of them, or most of them, I should say, have some sort of an online fraud policy. If you, go to the bottom of your broker's website, you probably will see something that's called security or something like that. And you really should click on that and see if they've got an online fraud guarantee. They call them guarantees, but none of them are really complete guarantees. But you'll get an idea of how much protection you're going to have if something goes wrong. Most of the firms put a lot of responsibility in the customer's lap. You have to not have clicked on any phishing emails. They say you need to have strong passwords. Some of them define that, some of them don't. In Vanguard's case, they say you have to have firewall protection, anti-spyware, and they say you've got to have a password that's at least 8 characters, which is a little bit funny because they let you have passwords that are only 6 characters. So, go figure. But, investors who go read those policies, if nothing else, they will get an idea of what they really need to do to be protected. And so it's a good place to start.
Yeah, that's amazing. So they're going to hold you to a standard after the fact that they didn't hold you to before the fact. It's hypocritical at the very least. And I think if it went to court, although, of course, you don't go to court with securities companies, you go to arbitration, in which they pick the arbitrators pretty much because if you don't define favorably for the securities company, you're going to find yourself with a shortage of work. We all know how that works, right?
It does work that way often in arbitration. That's for sure.
Yeah. So if you're an individual with an account, what's the best way here, Susan, to protect yourself since Vanguard doesn't want to or isn't willing
Well,
to?
Whether you're at Vanguard or anywhere, I would say have a complicated password. It should have upper and lower case. It should have numbers. It should have special characters in it. And it should not be a word that you can find in a dictionary. None of your security answers or passwords should be words you can find in dictionaries because hackers go through the dictionary. That's part of what they do when they're trying to hack your password. The second thing I would say is what I mentioned before. If your firm offers 2-factor authentication, use it. You're nuts if you don't do that. And, you need to look at your accounts frequently. I get furious recently with all the craziness in the market. I've heard people on TV and seen it in print, people saying, don't get all upset about what the market's doing. Just don't look at your statements. And I cringe. I mean, do look at your statements. You've got to look at your statements and see if something's going on that you didn't authorize, because if you don't keep up with your statement, that's one of the first things the firm throw back at you. They say, look, this happened 6 months ago. What are you talking about? Why would we be liable? Why aren't you looking at your statements? So you've got to pay attention to what's going on in your account. Very important.
Look at your statement, and if there is a discrepancy, report it immediately. Don't wait.
Right. Right away.
Yeah. The longer you wait, the more problems you're going to have. Susan, we want to find out more about your work. Read what you're doing. Best place to find it?
You can go to my website, susanantilla.com. I have all of my stories are posted there. And to see what I've done at the street, you can go to thestreet.com and just put my last name in the search box, and you'll find all of my stories for the street, including this one that you and I are talking about.
Excellent. And as always, you will find a link to Susan's work in the show notes to this interview on financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Make sure you sign up. We got a free series of webinars coming up. Susan, thanks so much for being on.
My pleasure.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.